Hello, Brobs. We're back with The Golem Remembered, 1909 to 1980 variations of a Jewish legend, Arnold L. Goldsmith. We are on chapter, 13? I don't know. Shut up, bottle. This is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I have no clue what chapter we're on. It isn't 13, though. Too far. There's not that many chapters. Let me just turn to the front. It's embarrassing. Would I waste 2 minutes here? Chapter 7. The Golem Remembered in Popular Culture and Poetry. The Golem meets Superman. It was inevitable for the Golem to find his way into comic books as well as films. Once again, Donald Glut is helpful as he supplies titles, magazines, dates from 1960 to 1972, and even a few brief plot details. 2 examples will suffice for now. In 1966, a French comic strip called Lone Sloan by Philippe Droulet and Eric Losfeld told the story about the Golem based on Wegener's portrayal in which the Golem was destroyed by the traditional removal of its magic sign. In 1970, Among Us Walks, the Golem appeared in Marvel Comics' Incredible Hulk number 134. Roy Thomas told the story. Illustrated by Herbert Trimpe. Of the Hulk, a creature patterned after Frankenstein's monster, mistaken for the Golem by a child whose father often told the legend. Thus, the Hulk became the temporary Golem of a people oppressed by a dictator. A totally different version of the Golem, conceived of simply as the tool of an evil scientist, can be found 2 years later as the new opponent of that all-American institution, Superman. Glut was familiar with the February 1972 issue, number 248, which contains the story The Man Who Murdered the Earth, written by Len Wein and drawn by Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson, but apparently because of publication deadlines for the Frankenstein legend, he was unable to mention a sequel that appeared in November of the same year, number 258. Detailed summaries of both of these adventures will serve as examples of the appeal of the Golem legend in popular culture and show how far it has come since the days of Udall Rosenberg and Chaim Bloch. They will also show the lingering influence of Mary Shelley's novel and Wegener's film. In the first adventure, Wayne introduces the mad scientist Lex Luthor, who, frustrated by his lifelong conflict with Superman, has decided to record the story of how the latter once destroyed the Earth, insisting that he could outdo that bumbling Victor Frankenstein. Luthor boasted that he had succeeded in creating more than mere humanoid life. From the birthplace of the universe, he had gathered particles and pieces of galactic matter, proclaiming, like the legendary Golem of old, who has forged from bits of clay, I have molded a man-thing that'll be more than a match for my old friend Superman. In previous versions of the creation of the Golem, the procedure involved the knowledge of ancient Jewish mysticism, for example, the Sefer Yetzirah and the Zohar, alchemy, astrology, and in the Wegener film, or is it Wegener? I don't know, chemical mixtures and laboratory beakers. But Wayne adds a new element which he adapted from all the Frankenstein movies of the previous 4 decades. A terrific surge of galactic energy, boy. Whereas Mary Shelley was surprisingly vague in her explanation of the way in which Victor Frankenstein brought his monster to life, probably, as Glut suggests, through galvanic power and injections, productions of the scientist's own discoveries, and advanced apparatus Film versions usually offer a spectacular display of electrical power. Frequently, there is a raging storm which adds to the theatricality, but is also needed for its electricity. In the Superman version, instead of mere galvanic power, Luthor waits for the proper conjunction of the stars, and then succeeds in producing by means of his modern electronic equipment a surge of galactic energy, which shocks the Jesus Christ, the Golem to life. A design of swirling planets and stars covers the creature's huge blue muscular body and the center of his forehead. Appropriately named the Galactic Golem, it has a single driving force, an all-consuming hunger for the hyper-stellar energy that lent it life. Speaking through a voice box implanted in his monster, Luthor sends the Galactic Golem after Superman, who has to flee. When he feels the powerful monster sucking out his strength, desperately trying to figure out the monster's weak spot, Superman decides to hit the Galactic Golem on the astrological design on his forehead. The blow unleashes tremendous forces, seemingly killing everyone in the world. Even Superman is gone. A remorseful Luthor, apparently the lone survivor, decides to leave Earth, but the Golem attacks him. To protect himself, the mad scientist sets up a force field of energy, but is trapped in his laboratory with the ravenous monster. Fortunately for Luthor, Superman reappears and, with an incredible effort, is able to smash through the shield, desperately holding off the Golem. Superman gives Luthor time to shoot into space a cannon loaded with the energy the Golem craves. This plan succeeds because the Golem loses interest in the two men, and he heads into space in pursuit of the galactic energy. If the comic book reader is worried at this point about the dubious victory over a Golem when all human life on Earth has already been destroyed, Wayne has a surprising revelation. Superman explains to a stunned Luthor how he realized just in time that he could not strike the Golem on the forehead because a discharge of that much hyperstellar energy could decimate the Earth. Thus, he used the Golem's own energy radiation to increase his vibrations and shifted Earth's population to a different dimensional plane. With all Earthlings safe, Superman completed the punch, but the Golem's shimmering energy blurred his eyesight, with the result that he missed the mark and ended up in the other dimension also. In the November sequel, the Galactic Golem surprises Superman with his return to Earth. He explains that an alien exploratory vessel had picked him up with other space debris. Even though the astronauts had saved his life, he destroyed their laboratory. They, in turn, tricked him back into space in pursuit of energy-changed meteoroids, which led him back to his own planet. Superman's new strategy is to go to Luthor's laboratory to fill the galactic cannon with energy to attract the hungry Golem. Taking his eye off the dials for a second, Superman is himself caught in an energy feedback and is given a charge of galactic energy, adding to his already awesome strength, but also making the monster want to feed on him. In the fight that follows, Superman hits the Galactic Golem so hard that the monster flies 3 miles. As Superman races in pursuit, and the Golem hurls icebergs at him, knocking him from the sky. Not to be outdone, Superman takes molten metal from the Earth's core and uses it to trap the Golem as they stand over the magnetic North Pole. Covered with a mixture of iron and nickel, two elements highly attracted by magnetism, the Galactic Golem is last seen bent over on hands and knees, chilled by Arctic winds. Unfeeling, uncaring, unmoving, although the reader does not feel for him the pity felt for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, her monster is also seen, for the last time alone, on a raft of ice floating off into the dark Arctic wilderness. Avram Davidson and Isaac Leib Peretz. Less is more. Far less spectacular and imaginative than Superman's adventures with the Galactic Golem is a story by Avram Davidson, published by Fantasy House in 1955, and reprinted in both The Jewish Caravan, 1965, edited by Leo Schwarz, and Wandering Stars, an anthology of Jewish fantasy and science fiction, 1974, edited by Jack Dan. Oh, man. Introduced by Isaac Asimov. The Golem is an attempt to give a venerable Jewish legend a light, humorous touch. The result is a banal, tedious story with a contrived ending. The settling of Davidson's Golem is an autumn afternoon in suburban California. The setting of Davidson's Golem is an autumn afternoon in suburban California. An elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Gumbiner, are seated on their porch when they are suddenly joined by a mysterious stranger. Mr. Gumbiner, the stereotypical Jewish senior citizen, jokes that this man walks like a golem. Ignoring the stranger's ominous comments, "When you learn who, or rather what, I am, the flesh will melt from your bones in terror." The couple talk about the stranger, the need to mow the lawn, a sick friend with a generous son. When the stranger tries to tell the couple about Professor Allardyce's experiments, which, in creating him, have finally made mankind superfluous, the Gumbiners ignore him with their ridiculous and irrelevant comments. Had they been listening, they would have been the first to hear the ominous news of Allardyce's mysterious death, and that his library had a complete collection of stories about androids, from Shelley's Frankenstein through Capek's RUR to Asimov's Provincial. Mr. Gumbiner, who cannot see beyond his front lawn, is reminded of a Frankenstein who had the soda wasser place on Halstead Street. A Litvak, Nebich, I don't know what the hell they're talking about here, reacting to the stranger's threatening announcement that he has come on an errand of destruction, Gumbiner gives him a slap which knocks him out as the golem's head hits a pillar on the porch. To Gumbiner's amazement, the stranger's head is covered with a gray skin-like material, but is, oh man, pardon for all the yawns. That ought to really perk you up when you're listening to this. But is all springs and wires inside. To his disbelieving wife, he says, "I told you it was a golem, but no, you wouldn't listen." At this point, the old couple remember the legend of Rabbi Lowe and his golem. How the rabbi erased the Shem HaMefarash from the golem's forehead, and the golem fell down like a dead one. And they put him up in the attic of the shul, and he's still there today, if the Communistern haven't sent him to Moscow. Since there's nothing on the golem's forehead, Gumbiner takes some clay, adjusts his yarmulke, and writes 4 Hebrew letters on the gray skin. When nothing happens, he studies the golem's exposed springs and wires, tinkers with them a little, and then asserts his authority. This time the golem responds, repeating that what was said to him. The story ends with Gumbiners ordering the golem to mow the grass, while the couple continue to discuss their many relatives. A remarkable contrast to Avram Davidson's contrived effort is a one-page gem by Isaac Leib Peretz. Though Peretz's story was written in the last quarter of the 19th century, it merits inclusion in this study because it was translated into English by Irving Howe in 1953. Peretz's simple retelling of the legend of Rabbi Lowe, whom Peretz calls Loeb, and his creation of the golem is a perfect example of the meaning of the dictum, less is more. In Peretz's hands, the tale becomes, says Irving Howe, a cryptic little parable on the decline of faith, the loss of ancient wisdom, the dust of skepticism. The parable begins with a one-sentence paragraph. Great men were once capable of great miracles. It goes on to tell how, in the time of a pogrom in Prague, Rabbi Loeb blew. I just can't do it. Rabbi Loeb blew into the nose of an image molded from clay and whispered the name into its ear, thus bringing the golem to life. He sent it on its mission to destroy the enemies of the Jews, until fear was expressed that, as Friday began, there would not be a Gentile left to light the Sabbath fires or take down the Sabbath lamps. Rabbi Loeb tamed the golem by singing the psalm, a song of Sabbath, and then, whispering again into its ear, restored it to clay. Peretz explains that the golem still remains in the attic of the Prague synagogue, covered with cobwebs. No living creature may look at it, particularly women in pregnancy. No one may touch the cobwebs, for whoever touches them dies. Even the oldest person no longer remembers the golem. Though the wise man Zvai, the grandson of the great Rabbi Loeb, ponders the problem. May such a golem be included in a congregation of worshippers or not? Peretz concludes his parable on the growth of secularism by observing that with such tales we can see that the golem has not been forgotten. It is still there, it is still here, but the name by which it could be called to life in a day of need, the name has disappeared, and the cobwebs grow and grow, and no one may touch them. What are we to do? What I should do is stop reading because I'm botching it, but because I'm tired, but we're going to continue on, I believe. Where's the next section end? There's no way I'm reading 5 more pages. Although I probably need to. Let's see if we can do it. 3 versions of the Golem legend for children. What's that leave me with? 20 pages? That's 10 pages. 13 pages. I should just stop here. I've botched enough. We'll pick it back up at 3 versions of the Golem legend for children next time when I'm not half asleep. Goodbye, bruv. Goodbye.